నమస్తే అండి. ట్రంప్ థాంక్స్ గివింగ్ డే నాడు కొన్ని ట్వీట్లు పెట్టాడు. ఏది ఇమిగ్రేషన్ పాలిసీ మీద. యాక్చువల్‌గా పాలిసీ అనడానికి లేదని మీరు అనొచ్చు. కానీ లిటరల్‌గా ఏంటంటే అలాంటి యాంగ్రీ ట్వీట్స్ అన్నీ దే ఆర్ కమింగ్ ఫ్రమ్ ఏ డిజైర్ టు ఇంప్లిమెంట్ ఎ పాలిసీ. ఇమిగ్రేషన్ అన్నిది థర్డ్ వరల్డ్ కంట్రీస్ నుంచి రద్దు చేస్తాననడం, 53 మిలియన్ ఫారెన్ బాండ్ ప్రజలందరూ లైక్ ఒక రకంగా క్రిమినల్స్‌గా ట్రీట్ చేయడం. దట్ ఇంక్లూడ్స్ మీ ఫారెన్ బాండ్ అమెరికన్. సో ఇలా పిచ్చి పిచ్చి కోతలన్నీ కూశాడు. దానికి నేను పెట్టిన టైటిల్ ఇమిగ్రేషన్ మీద ట్రంప్ మెంటల్ ట్వీట్ అని. ట్రంప్స్ ఇమిగ్రేషన్ ర్యాంట్ ద రియాలిటీ అంటూ దాంట్లో ఫ్యాక్ట్ చెక్ చేస్తూ కొంత ఇది పెట్టాననమాట. నేను ఫారెన్ బాండ్ కాబట్టి అందుకు అలా కోపంతో రియాక్ట్ అయ్యానా అనిపించింది నాకు. ఎందుకంటే ఐ హావెంట్ వాచ్డ్ టూ మచ్ ఆఫ్ అదర్ పీపుల్స్ రియాక్షన్ నేను ఆ వీడియో పెట్టినప్పటికి. యాజ్ ద డే ప్రోగ్రెస్డ్ ఐ వాజ్ వాచింగ్ ద రియాక్షన్ టు ఇట్. నేను ఫాలో అయ్యే విఘ్నులందరూ చాలామంది చాలా స్ట్రాంగ్ రియాక్షన్ చూపిస్తున్నారండి. ఇప్పుడు అలాంటిదే ఒకటి మీ ముందుకు తీసుకొద్దాం అన్న ఉద్దేశంతో ఈ అప్డేట్ పెడుతున్నాను. బుల్వార్క్ అని దెర్ ఇస్ ఎ వెరీ గుడ్ వెబ్సైట్ ఐ ఫాలో. దే ఆర్ ఫార్మర్ రిపబ్లికన్స్ లైక్ మీ who are very anti-Trump, reasonable people. Tim Miller, Sarah Longwell, Jonathan Last, వీళ్ళందరూ దే ఆర్ రియల్లీ గుడ్ కామెంటేటర్స్. వాళ్ళు దీనికి సంబంధించి చేసిన కామెంట్ జేవిఎల్ అంటారు, జానథన్ వి లాస్ట్. అతను సరా లాంగ్వెల్ చేసిన కామెంటరీ కొంచెం మీకు వినిపిద్దామన్న ఉద్దేశంతో ఈ అప్డేట్ పెడుతున్నాను. ఎక్కువగా నా కామెంటరీ ఏం లేదు, బట్ దే ఆర్ ఎకోయింగ్ ద సేమ్ థింగ్ వాట్ ఐ సెడ్ ఇన్ మై వీడియో. ఇట్ ఈస్ ఇంపార్టెంట్ టు నో two things. First of all, what Trump did is not right. And two, not every white person, whether they support Trump or not every white person thinks that way. This guy, Trump, is mentally compromised, clinically insane. Anyway, here is JVL and Sarah Langwell. వాళ్ళ podcast పూర్తిగా కాదు, bits and pieces.
The fact that Donald Trump tweeted this, like this incident, we've been in kind of this state of Trump's putting National Guard places and everybody understands, don't take the bait, don't let Trump force escalation. This is one of those moments where we probably find ourselves now with this reverberating in some kind of an escalation. And I would say the first point of that escalation has been the tweet from last night. And so now we can dig in on that.
So don't take the bait, right? Like Trump is going to be Trump. He's just going to lash out, probably do nothing and counter. I don't think so. This feels different. Reichstag Fire in Japan video. So this is exactly what Sarah Langwell is saying. She didn't use the word Reichstag Fire, but it's basically what it is. He's going to use this incident as an escalatory reason to do something nastier going forward.
My first reaction to this story was these two kids in the National Guard never should have been there. They shouldn't have been in Washington. They were deployed there and they're dead because Trump had this thing that he wanted to, like, he just needed to flex his muscles. He was going to, again, that was my first blush reaction. But now learning more about the shooter, I think.
That was my reaction too. Why are those two kids in the National Guard got shot? Because they were there, but they're not supposed to be there, right? So JVL goes on to say, well, this guy was itching to do something. వీళ్ళిద్దరు కాబట్టి ఇంకెవరిద్దరినో చంపేసి ఉండేవాడు ఏదో. That's what his reasoning is. But this particular two National Guard people, they're not supposed to be there. They were there because, చూడుడి నేను ఎంత మనగాడిని అని చెప్పుకోవడానికి పెట్టాడు వాళ్ళని తీసుకెళ్ళాక. I even went around and then tried to look around in Washington DC streets where they are deployed and all that. They were doing nothing. They were actually sweeping the streets. That's what they were doing. The city is not as crazy as he claimed it to be. It was never that crazy. There are some pockets of violence in Washington DC, just like in every city. Hyderabad lo unnai, Mumbai lo unnai, anni chotla unnai.
You don't just do this stuff. It creates these complicated situations. But I also think it's hard because there is sort of a political inflaming context that surrounds all of it, while at the same time really always does come down to people doing awful things for unimaginable reasons.
In any other time, certainly in our lifetimes in America, The response of presidents to moments like this, to flashpoints, regardless of where their politics are, is to try to tamp down everything, right? No matter what, whether it is a terrorist attack or a shooting at a gay nightclub or racially and motivated murder, no matter what, like when big national stuff like this happens, the president, whether he is Barack Obama or Bill Clinton or George W. Bush or Ronald Reagan, the response is always take the temperature down. So he went on to Truth Social and last night posted, for him, what is like an essay, basically. A very happy Thanksgiving salutation to all of our great American citizens and patriots who have been so nice in allowing our country to be divided, disrupted, carved up, murdered, beaten, mugged, and laughed at, along with certain other foolish countries throughout the world for being, quote, politically correct and just plain stupid when it comes to immigration. Goes on from there, talking about how a migrant earning $30,000 with a green card will get roughly $50,000 in yearly benefits for their family. This does feel like it was ghostwritten by Stephen Miller. I would say this is long enough and filled with enough quasi-fact.
That's exactly what I said. It feels like it's written by Stephen Miller. Hey, great minds think alike.
He says, I will permanently pause migration from all third world countries, denaturalize migrants who undermine domestic tranquility, and deport any foreign national who is a public charge, security risk, or non-compatible with Western civilization. I want to talk about this because this is sort of where Trump, I think, has been wanting to go, and he is going to, much like that guy Big Balls, him being jumped in D.C. is what led to them deploying the National Guard, which is still there months later, despite the fact that these guys have had nothing to do and they just plant trees and clean up trash. But Trump does this thing where denaturalize migrants who undermine domestic tranquility. Now, that is a wildly subjective. What does it mean to undermine domestic tranquility? But here's the thing that he's saying, and I want people to understand this and how pernicious it is. Like, this is one of the scariest things that I think Trump has put out. He's saying for people who are naturalized U.S. citizens, if you undermine domestic tranquility, so can that just be speaking out against Donald Trump? That certainly seems to be their litmus test.
That was a thought that went into my mind when I saw that line. Exactly the same thing Sarah Longwell is also saying.
Yeah.
For what it means. I mean, they're talking about putting to death senators and Congress people who are military service members who simply say, do not follow illegal orders. You do not have to follow illegal orders. And they say, first he said it was punishable by death. He was retweeting people saying, hang these people, President of the United States. And like, we should not get desensitized to this. But what he is saying here is, if your spouse is a naturalized citizen, if your parents are naturalized citizens, but we don't like what somebody said, what one of their kids say, we can now use threat of denaturalization and deportation against them. This is beyond. Okay, they are talking about this is people who have gone through the whole process. They've become American citizens. Many of them maybe have lived here for 30, 40 years. They are Americans. Their kids are Americans. Their extended family are Americans.
Sarah Longwell is talking about me and my family. Ladies and gentlemen, please do not get desensitized by this. President of the United States, Donald Trump, and Stephen Miller want to deport people who went through a long, arduous process of becoming citizens of this country. Well, one of the pretexts they can use is criticizing Donald Trump, which I do. I'm not saying he's going to come after me. Maybe he will. I don't know. I don't know what he's going to do. But the threat is there. The threat is directly written in that.
And you'd never know, seeing them on the street, that they were naturalized citizens. Suddenly, Trump saying, no, we can use this against you. I need people to pause on this and sit with it.
I use the phrase, let that sink in. And she's saying, pause on it. Same thing.
Only reverse migration, which is a fancy way of saying ethnic cleansing, I think, can fully cure this situation. Other than that, happy Thanksgiving to all, except those that hate, steal, murder, and destroy everything that America stands for. You won't be here for long. This sounds like a guy who wants everything to burn. And I would like to read to you from not a Never Trumper site, from the Wall Street Journal, the Wall Street Journal's editorial today. Some will say this means the U.S. should never admit such refugees. I'm sorry, why couldn't they just say Donald Trump? Instead of saying some will say, why not say the president is saying this? But that's not, they're being courageous, but not that courageous. But the alternative is abandoning allies who assist Americans in war to the retribution of our enemies. The fate of Afghans, men and women who worked with the U.S. has often been brutal. You can be sure Americans will fight overseas again, and our troops will need allies on the ground to assist. How many will assist us if they believe there will be no exit for them if the U.S. leaves with the enemy triumphant? The Wall Street Journal is saying, this is a terrible idea. This is very bad policy. Think about the implications for American national security in the long run. You take, 340 million people in the country. It's a big country. You're going to find crazy people and bad things will happen every day, especially when you have 400 million guns floating around. Nobody wants to say that maybe we shouldn't have so much access to guns. That's okay. Put that aside. But that there are like bigger national security concerns because people do take lessons, right? If the lesson is that we hang out all of our Afghan partners to dry because it turns out that one guy is a psychopath or is a terrorist or shouldn't have gotten through vetting or whatever the case may be, and we're going to make all of our policy decisions based on that, then how are we supposed to project power in the world? Right? I mean, these things should be obvious, and good on the Wall Street Journal editorial board for saying it.
So even Wall Street Journal sees something wrong with it.
But it is amazing that the president of the United States, and again, this really does read like it was from Stephen Miller, not
the tweet does.
The tweet, because it's a tweet thread. Trump never talks at like that much length in his own voice. Reverse migration.
This is what Stephen Miller has been waiting for. I'm sad about the tragedy itself. I'm sad about this young woman. I'm sad about the state of our politics that it brought us here. And this idea of I don't know how else to say this other than like, they've been waiting. They're waiting for an excuse. They've been desperate for an excuse.
Been trying to manufacture it, right?
They're looking for a Reichstag fire. They're waiting for an excuse. Lincoln Riley, Biden హయాంలో జరిగింది. Charlie Kirk, మొన్న murder జరిగింది. They couldn't push it to the extent they wanted to because the person who killed Charlie Kirk, or at least the accused person, is a white guy, white Christian guy, who's a Trump supporter, who was a Trump supporter. He was not an immigrant. He was not a Muslim. They couldn't make him the scapegoat. For some reason, it petered out. అది అలా సద్దుమణిపోయింది. ఇది కొత్తది వచ్చింది. Now they have a perfect villain, an immigrant, an asylum seeker, a brown-skinned guy, a Muslim, killed U.S. troops. Perfect storm for them. They are trying to make everybody a scapegoat. 53 million people who are born outside the United States, myself included, and many of the listeners included, many of the viewers included. Pay attention. మళ్ళీ చెప్తున్నాను, కూరలు తీసిన పాము కావచ్చు, కానీ ఇంకా సర్పమే, విష సర్పమే బుసలు కొడుతోంది. He can do a lot more damage. There's still little over 3 years left for his term. Be careful.